my brother's funeral. Hidden family secrets came out, turning grief into public humiliation. We'll never forget. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but honestly, I don't even know how else to process what happened. My brother Adam was only 23 when he passed away. The whole thing was sudden and accident, and my family was already barely holding it together before his funeral even began. The service was held at this small church on the edge of town, the kind with stained glass windows that let in these weird slants of light, almost too bright for the occasion. Everyone was dressed in black, whispering, crying, avoiding eye contact. My mom clutched a crumpled tissue in her hand like her life depended on it, while my dad sat stiff in the front pew, staring straight ahead. Adam was my younger brother, but somehow always felt older, more reckless, more alive, and more complicated. We fought a lot growing up, but I loved him, even if I didn't always say it. The service started as expected, prayers, a few soft-spoken words from the priest, some quiet sobbing behind me. But it didn't stay that way. It started when Sarah, Adam's ex-girlfriend, showed up late. She was wearing this tight black dress that definitely wasn't funeral appropriate, and all heads turned when she walked in. My aunt leaned over and muttered, of course she had to make an entrance. Sarah sat 2 rows behind us, arms crossed, eyes red but defiant. I thought that would be the end of it, but when the priest opened the floor for anyone who wanted to share memories of Adam, she stood up. Her heels clicked loudly against the floor as she walked to the front. My stomach dropped. I wasn't sure if I should say anything, she began, her voice trembling but loud enough for everyone to hear. But Adam was complicated, he had secrets, and since he can't defend himself, maybe it's time the truth is known. The air shifted. You could feel everyone tense. I whispered, oh God, not here, but it was too late. Sarah's hands were shaking, but her voice grew stronger. Adam wasn't the person you all thought he was. He wasn't just a fun, carefree guy. He was hiding things from all of you. People started whispering, turning to each other. My mom's face drained of colour, and my dad whispered harshly, sit down, this isn't the time. But Sarah didn't sit. She looked straight at my parents and said, he told me things about the family, things he wouldn't want anyone to know. I felt my chest tighten. It was like she had set a bomb in the middle of a room and was just waiting for it to go off. I wanted to get up, to stop her, but I was frozen. Everyone was staring at her, waiting for the next word to fall like a hammer. And then she said it. Well, the room went dead silent. The silence after Sarah's words was so heavy it felt like the air itself froze. You could hear the hum of the ceiling fan above the pews, the faint shuffle of someone clearing their throat, but no one dared speak. My dad's jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might break. My mom's tissue dropped to the floor without her even noticing. Sarah's voice didn't waver. Yeah, Adam told me. He said he caught your dad one night when he was supposed to be working late, that he'd been meeting someone for months. Adam carried that with him, and it tore him up inside. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My Aunt Linda muttered, Jesus Christ, under her breath. My cousin leaned forward like he was front row at a drama he'd been waiting years to watch. I turned to my dad. His face was stone, but his ears were red. My mom finally snapped, whisper yelling, is it true? Her voice cracked on the last word. Dad didn't answer. That silence said more than anything. And then, like throwing gasoline on an open flame, my older cousin Mark shouted from the back, I knew it. I always knew something was off about you, Uncle Dave. The priest tried to intervene, raising his hands like he could calm a storm. Please, this is a sacred space. Let's remember Adam in peace. But peace was long gone. Sarah kept going, as if she'd been holding this in for years. Adam didn't just know. He hated it. He said it made him feel like the whole family was fake. That's why he pulled away from everyone the last year. My mom let out the sound I can't even describe. Pot scream. She turned on my dad, her voice cracking but sharp. All this time, while Adam was, she couldn't even finish. My dad finally spoke, low and harsh. This isn't the place. But it was too late. Everyone was watching, whispering, judging. It felt like the funeral had shifted from honouring Adam's life to dissecting my parents' marriage. Then my aunt stood up, shaking her head. This family is cursed with secrets, always hiding, always pretending. My cousin Mark jumped in again, louder this time. Maybe if he'd been honest, Adam wouldn't have had to carry it alone. That cut deep. I saw my mom physically flinch. I wanted to defend my dad, to say something, but my throat locked up. Because part of me wondered if Adam had told Sarah, if he really had been carrying this secret like a weight until the day he died. The whispers turned into murmurs, the murmurs into voices. It was chaos. People weren't even talking about Adam anymore, they were dissecting my family like it was some soap opera. I felt my face burning with shame. My brother's funeral had turned into a stage for humiliation, and there was no way to pull the curtain back down. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, my mom turned to my dad, in front of everyone, and spat. Who was she? The whole room froze again. Every head turned toward my dad. Even the priest looked like he'd swallowed a brick. My mom's voice still trembled, but there was steel under the fear. Dad's face went red, veins popping at his temples. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, It's complicated. Not now. Not now. My mom shot back, her eyes blazing. Not now. Adam is dead, and you think this isn't the time? A few of the older relatives gasped audibly. My aunt muttered, I can't believe this is happening at his funeral. Sarah stayed silent, but smirked a little, like she was watching a show she'd scripted herself. I felt bile rise in my throat. You mean it's never the time? My cousin Mark shouted. Always covering up, always lying. Adam hated this. I looked down at my hands, shaking. I wanted to disappear. The thought of everyone watching, judging, dissecting my family in front of Adam's casket made me feel like vomiting. My dad finally snapped. Enough, he roared. Everyone, shut up. This is my son's funeral, not a goddamn courtroom. For a second, the room went so quiet it felt like the church itself was holding its breath. Then my mom laughed. Not a normal laugh, but a harsh, bitter bark. Your son? Our son? Adam deserved better than lies and secrets. Tears were streaming down my cousin's face. He did. That's why he told me. That's why he told Sarah. He couldn't deal with the hypocrisy anymore. The priest finally intervened, his voice shaking. We need to calm down. This is a sacred place. Adam loved all of you, please. But the words fell flat. No one was listening. My uncle muttered, shaking his head. I knew we'd all regret this if we kept pretending nothing was wrong. And then the worst part happened. Sarah, still standing near the front, said softly but loud enough for everyone to hear, I guess Adam wanted everyone to know the truth before it was too late. It hit me like a punch to the gut. Adam had wanted this in some way. He wanted the family to face the secrets he carried alone. And now, in death, he had orchestrated the humiliation we were living through. My dad sank into the pew, head in hands. My mom sat rigid, staring straight ahead. My aunt grabbed my hand, whispering, "I'm so sorry, honey, this is bad." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. All I could feel was the weight of everyone's eyes on our family, watching the truth spill out in the most public, humiliating way possible. I thought about Adam, my brother, gone, and yet somehow still controlling the storm from beyond the casket. And despite the chaos, I felt a strange shaking pride. Maybe he had finally freed us from the lies he had to lie with. But it didn't feel like relief yet. It felt like standing in the middle of a wildfire, and I had no idea if we'd make it out alive. After that moment, the tension in the church felt unbearable. People were murmuring again, but this time it wasn't quite sympathy, it was judgment, curiosity, and raw gossip. My mom finally stood up, face pale, hands trembling. I need to leave, she said, voice barely steady. Dad didn't respond. He just sat there, staring at the floor, like he was trying to shrink into nothing. My aunt grabbed Mom's arm and led her toward the door, whispering soothing words, but it was clear Mom wasn't soothed at all. Sarah, of course, followed. I could see her whispering to a few cousins, laughing quietly, but not genuinely happy, more like a predator watching prey struggle. I stayed put near Adam's casket. I couldn't look away. There was something hypnotic about the chaos around the person I'd loved, the brother whose secrets had become a weapon in the hands of the living. Then my cousin Mark approached me, his face flushed. "You okay, man?" he asked, voice low. I shook my head, unable to answer. He leaned closer, whispering, "She's going to keep going. She's not done. You might want to be ready." Before I could process that, the funeral director cleared his throat. "We should continue this service," he said, but no one moved. Everyone was glued to the unfolding family drama. And then Sarah spoke again, louder this time. "I think people need to know everything. Adam wouldn't want lives to die with him." I wanted to scream. "Please stop," I thought. "This is his funeral." But no one listened. Then came the bombshell, something I'd only suspected but never had proof of. She looked straight at my dad and said, and then, "Dad, you think nobody knew, but Adam saw you. He told me everything." A collective gasp went through the room. My mom's eyes widened in horror. My aunt's jaw dropped, and even the priest looked like he was reconsidering his life choices. Dad froze, mouth opening and closing. Finally, he muttered, "Adam, I didn't want him to know. I was trying to stop." His voice broke completely. "That's why he hated it, isn't it?" Sarah snapped. "Because you lied to him, because no one would tell him the truth." People were starting to murmur angrily now. Some whispered, some openly shook their heads. I could see a few shaking their fists. It wasn't just humiliation, it was scandal. I felt my stomach twist. Adam had exposed everything in his death. The funeral wasn't a farewell, there was a trial. And we were all defendants. I sank into a pew, resting my head on my hands. I didn't know what was worse, the shame, the shock, or the realization that we'd never get a normal funeral. The priest tried again, this time pleading, "Everyone, for Adam's sake, please, let's remember him." But his voice was drowned out by the echoes of our family unraveling in public. And then it hit me, Adam wasn't just gone. He'd left a legacy of truth, brutal and raw, and there was no escaping it. After the funeral service ended, if you could even call it that, people started drifting toward the church exit, whispering, pointing, some even glaring at my parents. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your chest tight and your hands clammy. I followed my mom and dad outside, trying to stay composed, but my dad hung back near the casket, staring at it like it held some kind of answers. I could hear snippets of conversations as we passed mourners. "Did you hear about? I can't believe he let this happen in front of everyone. Well, the DRGs, the affair of all of it." I swallowed hard. The entire town, basically, had just witnessed our family's darkest skeletons parade in a sacred space. And Adam had orchestrated it without even being alive. Mom finally spoke, voice shaking as she clutched my aunt's arm. I can't even face anyone. Everyone's going to judge us." "I know," my aunt said, trying to soothe her. "But you need to breathe. We'll handle this, together." Dad didn't join us. I watched him disappear into the parking lot shadows, muttering to himself. I wasn't sure if he'd gone to apologize, argue, or just drink his shame away in private. Then Sarah appeared again, standing near my mom. "I'm sorry," she said softly, almost mockingly. "I really am, but Adam wanted the truth out, and I'm just a messenger." Mom's head went toward her. "Messenger, you humiliated my family." "I told the truth," Sarah said evenly. "Adam wanted it known. You can blame me, but I am only the voice of what he carried." That sent Mom over the edge. She screamed, "He's gone. You took our son's funeral and turned it into the spectacle." I stepped between them, trying to calm the storm, but even my voice sounded small. "Mom, please, this isn't helping." Sarah just shook her head. "No, this is helping. People needed to know." I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my cousin Mark. "It's brutal," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But maybe now the lies can't hide anymore. Maybe Adam wanted this pain to be real." I wanted to argue, to scream, to deny it, but the truth cut deeper than any anger I could muster. Adam had lived carrying these secrets, and now we were forced to face them. The humiliation stung, yes, but somewhere under the shame, a strange clarity emerged. Our family couldn't pretend anymore. The facade was gone. The whispers, the judging eyes, they were painful, but they were also real. I looked at my parents broken, exhausted, and ashamed, and realized that nothing would ever be the same. Not the funeral, not our relationships, not even how we remembered Adam. He had left us a legacy of brutal honesty, whether we were ready for it or not. And somehow I knew we'd survive. Somehow we'd have to. But at that moment, all I felt was the weight of public humiliation and the aching absence of my brother, whose secrets had destroyed and liberated us all at once. The next few days were hell. The funeral had ended, but the fallout didn't. Relatives, neighbours, even co-workers from my parents' jobs whispered behind our backs. Every phone call felt like another person judging us. I stayed mostly with Mom and Aunt Linda, trying to keep some semblance of normalcy. Dad retreated into himself, barely speaking, often leaving the house for hours at a time. I didn't even try to reach him at first. I was too angry, too hurt, too exhausted. Finally, a few days after the funeral, Mom called a family meeting at our house. Cousin Mark, Aunt Linda, and even Sarah were there, yes, Sarah, who had somehow inserted herself into our lives permanently. Mom started, voice shaking but steadying as she went. "We need to talk. Not in front of Adam's casket, not in public. Just us, family. We can't keep hiding." Sarah interjected. "I don't mean to keep hurting anyone. I just Adam wanted the truth out. He carried so much alone. Maybe if we talk now, we can. I don't know, heal." Mark leaned forward. "Healing starts with honesty, and maybe admitting what's been wrong for years." Dad finally spoke, low and hesitant. "I messed up. I thought hiding things would protect you all. I didn't think it would do this." He trailed off, shame clear in every word. Mom's eyes softened a little, but her hand still shook. "It hurt, Adam. It hurt all of us, but I can see now that the anger isn't just mine. I have to forgive you, for Adam's sake, for us." I felt tears prick my eyes. For the first time since the funeral, it felt like maybe, just maybe, some of the storm could settle. Sarah added quietly, "Adam's death doesn't have to be just tragedy. Maybe it can be a start." It wasn't a magical fix. Conversations were raw, sometimes ugly, sometimes tearful. We all confronted the mistakes, the secrets, the lies. My dad admitted the affair, admitted the drgs, admitted the guilt he'd carried. My mom admitted the resentment she'd buried for years. Mark and I shared memories of Adam arguing about how he could be infuriating and amazing at the same time. Even Sarah shared stories, weirdly comforting in their honesty, about how Adam had confided in her how he had feared that none of us would ever know the truth. It was messy. It was awkward. But it was real. By the end of the night, we didn't fix everything. We weren't healed completely. But there was a shift of fragile understanding. The humiliation of the funeral still stung, but it had forced the family to confront truths we'd avoided for decades. And for Adam, somehow, that felt like what he would have wanted. Weeks passed, and life began to settle into a new, uncomfortable rhythm. The funeral was over, but the story of Adam's death and the secrets that came spilling out followed us everywhere. People in town whispered when they saw us. Neighbours gave awkward smiles, and distant relatives still made thinly veiled comments. It was exhausting, and yet it forced us to grow in ways we hadn't imagined. Mom and Dad started attending therapy together. It wasn't perfect. Arguments still flared, but now they weren't fueled by lies, they were fueled by honesty, and it was somehow less poisonous. Mom admitted that the humiliation of Adam's funeral had been unbearable, but she also said it had forced her to face truths she'd ignored for too long. Dad, quiet as ever, finally began to open up. He talked about the shame, the guilt, the fear of judgment that had kept him silent for years. For once, we could see him not as a figure of authority, but as a flawed human being like the rest of us. Cousin Mark became a weird kind of anchor, checking in with everyone, making sure tempers cooled before conversations turned destructive. He joked badly, but it worked about Adam being the ultimate chaos agent from beyond the grave. We all laughed awkwardly, but it was laughter that carried relief. Sarah stayed in our lives too, though her role shifted. She wasn't the antagonist anymore, she became someone who reminded us of Adam's truth, someone who kept our memories of him alive without pretending. It was strange, but in a way, it felt right. I spent a lot of time alone, thinking about Adam. About how he'd carried these secrets, and how he'd chosen to reveal them in the most dramatic, painful way possible. I hated that it had been humiliating, but I also respected him. He trusted us, in his own way, to handle the fallout. One evening, I sat in Adam's old room, going through his things. I found a notebook filled with half-written letters, sketches, and rambling thoughts about family, life, mistakes, and forgiveness. I realised he had been trying to make sense of the chaos he saw around him, and maybe, in some way, he had wanted us to grow from it. I looked out the window at the fading light, thinking about how much pain the truth had caused, but also how much clarity it had brought. We weren't perfect. We were still broken, still human, but we were alive. And we had each other, even if only in a fragile, complicated way. Adam's funeral had been the most humiliating, shocking day of my life. But it had also been a turning point. We had faced the darkness together, and while the scars remained, so did the sense of honesty we'd never had before. For the first time since his death, I felt a strange peace. Not because the pain was gone, but because Adam's truth had finally set us free, messy, raw, and unforgettable. Even in death, he had changed us. And maybe, somehow, that was the point.